Does anyone know what season it is? Fall. Okay, well, what else? Football season. And what goes well with football? Fantasy football. Now there are a few things that you need to know before we get started. Sometimes you do really well, like Calvin Johnson. For those of you who don't know who Calvin Johnson is a wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. And arguably one of the best in the league. But sometimes you don't do well, like for Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford. You never want to get discouraged if you aren't playing well, because there's always a way to make your fantasy team better. There are three main parts to fantasy football: the draft, the trade, and the weekly matchup. So let's get started. We have the draft. The draft is probably the most complex and most important part of fantasy football. First, you want to get a group of buddies together. Then you have to establish a league and league rules. A league typically consists of about 10 users who have rosters of about 17 players that will be drafted. I've played in leagues that are anywhere from 4. I played in a 4-person league, a 6-person, 8, 10, and up to 12, and I've even played in some money leagues. Now that you have your league full, you have to pick your draft strategy and your draft date. Most draft strategies include a running back or a wide receiver first, based on what position you have in the draft or how your settings and league roster is built. The NFL.com's draft strategy is running back 1, round 1 take a running back, round 2 take a wide receiver, and so on. As you can see, there is a lot of variations. It largely depends on players available, of when you have your pick, who's available. You always want to go with position and players who will get you the most points if you're playing in a points league. If you're playing in a categories league, you want to get players who fill those category stats, certainly. I typically look at ESPN or Yahoo and look at their rankings before I draft. They typically put a list of for typical formats of how they think each individual player will do and where they should be drafted. This year, this past season, they are mostly running backs for the highest picked players, and typically because they are the hardest to find and they typically score the most fantasy points. Fantasy football impact. Football gives reasons on why to choose certain types of players in what draft order. They come up with a calculation to see the top 10 picks, and then guess their points. Running backs and wide receivers have the greatest margin of points from top pick to bottom. That's why you order them first. Another key prospect of the draft is the sleeper. The sleeper is typically a player that no one thinks it will do very well, or that no one has ever heard about. You typically take them in the later rounds just as a flyer, as say, okay, I'm building out my roster, and I need a certain position, or a certain player with a certain type of stats. Typically take them. Typically a rookie or, like I said, a guy that no one's ever heard of. And some people take them based on college records or whatever. The second prospect of fantasy football is the trade. If you completely blow your draft, there are always trades to help better your team. You can always trade your best player and a couple of your average to pretty bad players and get the best player in the deal, but get more depth back. You can also look for other league members also that like need help on their trades with their rosters and have possibly trade with them. Say, for instance, say they're looking for a tight end. You can always, if you have a good tight end, you can always trade one of your tight ends. And say you need a quarterback, you trade your tight end for a quarterback. And then you can use CBS Sports Trade Value Calculator, or there's numerous sites that do that. That have trade calculators for every fantasy sports, not just fantasy football, to ensure that you get the right trade, that you think you'll get the right value, and you like the current trade that's on the table. But it's always good to work for your own advantage. Next, you have your weekly matchup. This is where you live. You have to, where all that comes into play, like your draft and your trades. This is where it all happens. You have to be careful though. You only get 9 players to start each week. And obviously, there's always projections and stuff. You always want to make sure you have the highest to projected points. Obviously, sometimes projections matter, sometimes projections don't. Just depends. You want to make sure you have the best players playing each week. Sometimes it won't happen because of bye weeks and stuff like that. And other than that, that's why I love fantasy football, and that's why I play every year. Thanks for watching.